So I've done my bit. Now it's you guys. First question, always the hardest. Thank you.
Earlier you mentioned the fifth and sixth book, but what's the fourth book going to be about?
The sequence is the alchemist, the magician, the sorceress, and the necromancer. Well, a lot of people forget about the magician, which is really interesting. A lot of people go straight from 1 to 3, and we were discussing that earlier on. But the warlock, the next one is the warlock, and the last one is the enchantress.
Can you tell us anything about the warlock and the enchantress? Anything at all?
You've read the ending of this one, have you?
Yes.
Has everyone read the ending of this one? No.
Yes.
I'll whisper to you quietly after.
Thank you.
But it's the last two books are essentially one big fat story. As we race towards a conclusion, if you read the Warlock, all of the things that I've revealed, you'll discover so much more in the next two. A lot of people said that the Necromancer was the slowest of the books. It actually only takes place in 2 days. It's the same time frame as the first 4. But it is the one where you get to discover lots of bits and pieces, and then all of that plays out in the last two. And the last two is just a huge chase towards the end. But I won't reveal the end.
So you said the last two were going to be like one April. What if you do that?
Well, I would very much like to do that, but my publishers, because there is a natural break in the middle. There's a very natural break at the end of book 5, where there is an enormous revelation, where all of the characters discover something. So there is a nice break. But the last two stories have to be written together and plotted together so that the story strands carry through properly. That's why. Only 2 questions.
So are you still on the schedule for one a year?
We're still on the schedule for 1 a year. Next year, however, we should see the Warlock and the first book of a new series called the Ark Lords. And the Ark Lords are sort of mentioned in this series, so I'm going back to tell their story. The Ark Lords is very, very tangentially related to this, but it's a completely standalone series.
So we're looking at spring next year, or are you talking about fall?
May. It'll be May for the Warlock, and probably fall for the first book of the Ark Lords. I haven't fixed the title.
And then second question, since you put in Quetzalcoatl and his tie-in with the Mayans and predicting the 2012 disaster, are you going to relate any of that mythology into the book?
It's entirely coincidental that I finished the end of the story in 2012. No, I mean the whole 2012 is really interesting because although the Mayan calendar finishes, or one segment of the Mayan calendar finishes in 2012, a new segment begins immediately afterwards. So the answer is no. And also what's very interesting is when I started to write these books, I needed to set them on certain days so that the dates actually match the calendar. I have to have a look at this because I don't know what the date of this is. So if you check the dates that this book is actually, Tuesday the 5th of June. If you check your calendar to see when a Tuesday 5th of June is, it's 2007. This is set in 2007. So it's not 20, but it was just the accident of when Nicolas. Okay. You're allowed to have many questions as you wish.
How did you come upon Virginia there? What an interesting choice. Were there other choices of and how did you come upon her?
How did I choose Virginia? Virginia Dare is one of the most dangerous characters I've ever written about, because once she appears on the page, she's such a dominant character that she begins to take over, and I deliberately have to write her away or give her really short chapters. The lost colony of Roanoke has always fascinated me. I mean, this is the colony that came over, first English colony in America, was sort of flourishing maybe, and then when the English came back, it was gone, completely gone, with the single word Croatan carved into the wood. Virginia Dare is the first European born in America. So we have her mother's name, we have her father's name, we have her name, we know nothing about her. She vanishes out of history. And I've always wanted to do something with Virginia Dare. I needed someone who was as strong and as ruthless as Dee, possibly even more ruthless than Dee, who was about the same age as Dee. And that's where Virginia comes from. But she is a tricky character to write about. I mean, she does deserve almost a book to herself. And she's a huge role to play as we go forward. And if you've read the book, you know that she's sort of beginning to take control. Dee is in such trouble. Not only are all the elders after him, but all the humans are after him as well. He's not having a good day.
It's hard to be
There, see, I know, I only thought that later.
So my second question, thank you, this is looking way ahead, but often we talk about, gee, this would make a great movie. Is that ever possible?
It is and it isn't, is the short answer. Before the books were even published, New Line, who had made Lord of the Rings, bought the rights to the series. And it was all terribly exciting. They were going to do 6 movies. And then New Line were bought by Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers at that stage were in the middle of Harry Potter and in the middle of a bunch of other stuff. And we reckoned it would be 10 years, or maybe more, before it was made. So the rights reverted to me, and we didn't sell them back to Warner Brothers again. Lorenzo di Bonaventura, who made Transformers and G.I. Joe and stuff, and Salt, which is out this weekend, then took the rights. Now Lorenzo is interesting because when Lorenzo was with Warner Brothers, he is the man who brought Harry Potter to Warner Brothers. And he says, and he said it in print, he said, the Alchemist series is the next Harry Potter. He said it in print, and I said, thanks very much. So, it's with him. Will it happen? I don't know. It takes so long for movies to be made. And I'm happy for all the books to be in print, so they can't mess with it too much. The real issue which they're having, of course, is because book 1 takes place in 2 days and books 2 takes place in 2 days. But movies take years to make, so the actors that they choose, how are they going to show them over the passage of time? Because only a week goes by in my entire story. How do they show that over the movie? And they're talking about stuff like motion capture and stuff like that, which is really interesting. They don't want to end up in a Harry Potter situation where by the time the new Harry Potter movie comes out, do you believe Harry is still going to school? Well, you don't, because he looks too old. That's the problem. So the answer is yes, maybe. And they're going to be expensive movies. I know they budgeted it when they were doing it the first time. They budgeted The Alchemist, and they said, "Oh, this is a $150 million movie."
Well, then the Alchemist and Cornell would be pretty easy to do because they might actually age correctly.
Absolutely, they're going to be the easy ones. It's Sophie and Josh who are the real problems here. They talked about looking for brand new actors, people who've never acted before, as they did with the Harry Potter franchise. So we're looking for new actors. They've got to be twins, which limits the pot a little bit further. And then if they photograph them when they're 15 or 16, by the time they come to do movie 6, that's going to be 5 or 6 or 7 years. So they'll then be into their 20s. So what they may do, what we're talking about doing, are 3D high-resolution scans of their heads, and then putting their heads onto different actors. Yeah, even I'm getting confused, I'm saying it. But that's one way they would keep them looking the same. Who knows? Yeah, just agree.
What did you idea for the crystal skull?
Oh, there really is a crystal skull. In fact, there are several crystal skulls in mythology and legend, and in South American legend, there are several real crystal skulls. And now, are they really antique skulls? Probably not. A couple of the skulls, which people always assume were 1,000 years old and 800 years old, turned out to have been carved at the beginning of this century. But there really are crystal skulls. There really are very beautiful skulls carved of rock crystal.
When I first read about it, I was confused with Indiana Jones.
They got it from the same place I got it from, you know. When you're writing mythology, as I do, and in fact I had this conversation, I was interviewing Rick Riordan on Sunday. We were both at Comic-Con. And, you know, Rick and I both write mythology. Both of us do Greek mythology, and he's now doing Egyptian mythology. If you're writing about mythology, you will eventually end up playing with the same characters. So if I'm writing about South American mythology, I'm going to end up with the Crystal Skull, which of course Indiana Jones has. But everything in the books, every single thing, with the exception of Sophie and Josh, is drawn from history or mythology or legend. And you can go online, or you can go to your library or come to a bookstore like this and go through the research material, and you'll find a whole other backstory, which I don't have to write, but it's all there.
Is it including the Archons?
Including the Archons, yes. If you tap in Archons to check out your Greek mythology, you'll find out everything I promise you.
Why do you think we added the first 3 books and then
Why did I keep Aoife out of the first three books? What I wanted to do was to develop the character of Scatlock so that she's developed as a strong, powerful woman. And then when Aoife appears, Aoife says, but everything she's told you is a lie. So then you're suddenly shocked and you believe anything Scatlock has said. Aoife was also important because Aoife, and was a little bit more, we haven't not quite done with Aoife yet. I've said before that the Flamel series is essentially a love story. It's Nicholas and Parnell who've been married forever. Machiavelli talks about his lost wife. Dee talks about his lost wife and children. Shakespeare talks about his wife and children. And it's Sophie and Josh, so it's all of these relationships. And Scatlock and Aoife gave me an opportunity to look at another relationship, a relationship where